Okay, then global community, global packaging community, a heartily welcome to our webinar, COP30 webinar, action plan towards COP30, sustainable food systems and what packaging maybe plays a role in that food systems. If you wonder what this COP is standing for, yeah, I also had to Google it to be true. Everybody's talking about we are going to COP, we are going to COP, WPO is going to COP. COP is standing for Conference of the Parties, yeah, and it's part of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, yeah. So this is the United Nations Climate Conference is a permanently process, yeah, going on fighting climate change, yeah, the negative outcomes of climate change, and this COP is then the really meeting, yeah, that all the people are gathering together. We have this now starting already today with some politicians, and then the real conference is starting next week in Belém, in Brazil. And we as WPO, together with our cooperations partner UNIDOS and FSSC, are attending for first time as real participants this COP30. And this is really tremendous news. And we wanted to share this not only via our usual social channels with you. We wanted to organize a webinar already preliminary to this meeting, and for sure we will end up also with many meetings after COP30 to talk about what did it mean and what are the next steps. My name is Johannes Bergmeier. I am General Secretary of WPO, the World Packaging Organization, and you know it already from the invitation. We have a nice bunch of speakers, presenters here today. We have with us Luciana Pellegrino, President of WPO, Ali Baraneh, Head of the Food System Division in United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. We have Nerida Kelton from Australia. She's Vice President in WPO for Sustainability and Safe Food. And we have Aldin Hilbrands from FSSC, the Foundation FSSC in the Netherlands, but also a global organization for sure. The first COP has been in 1995, by the way. I also Googled it. So, and we have now the 30th version of this. And this will, as mentioned, start to be happen next year in Belém. First step already is to welcome Luciana. Please, may I ask you for your official opening words of this webinar.
Thank you so much, Johannes. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening as well. Greetings from Brazil and welcome. And thank you for joining us in this occasion that is the warm-up webinar towards COP30 to explore the role of packaging in supporting sustainable, resilient food systems. So Johannes already introduced me. I'm Luciana Pellegrino, the president of WPO. And as you have seen, I'm here today with key leading voices in the global scenario, advocating and driving action towards sustainable food systems around the world, fighting against food loss and waste, and climate change as well. COP30 is the global stage to align forces, to align action, and to align funds as well. To contain the climate change imposes huge challenges on a country level. It does impact economies. And as we have been seeing in many times, it loses traction. However, there is a point of action that brings social, economic growth, while sustainable growth as well. And this is why we are here today, WPO, UNIDO, and FSSC, to advocate for governmental and private sector's commitment to push sustainable food systems. And yes, packaging plays a vital role in avoiding food losses and waste, on driving food safety, and also, and most of all, driving food security. So we are looking at the UN's the Sustainable Development Goals #2, that stands for Zero Hunger. Also as the SDG #12 for Sustainable Consumption and Production. And for sure, SDG 13, that stands on climate action. And how is it connected? Food loss and waste is accountable for 8 to 10% of greenhouse gases emissions globally. And we have prepared a document that brings very, very consistent science data about this. This document, called The Paradox of Food Loss and Waste, was prepared by WPO together with UNIDO and Wageningen University in the Netherlands. And it is available for download at WPO's website, www.worldpackaging.org. And that's the point. When food decomposes without oxygen anaerobically, it produces methane gases. And this bottom we can push together through collaboration, through building local capacity and structured sustainable food chains on a local level with zero food waste. So before I hand it back to Johannes, let me just point that this is not an occasional participation at COP30. It has been a long journey. And in fact, we see this opportunity as a milestone of a new moonshot that we places to ourselves to support and to drive sustainability throughout food chains globally. So let me just quickly share an image with you that shows here our journey towards COP30 to 2025. So very briefly, continue to share. Let me see, I believe you say it. In 2017, WPO and UNIDO signed an MOU for cooperation. It was signed in Rio de Janeiro, here in Brazil. Look at the coincidence. And we started working together and joining efforts for an actionable activities around the world on supporting to leverage food systems on a local level. And at the same time, in 2021, WPO attended the Expo Dubai, and when visiting the Terra Pavilion that was bringing sustainability aspects, packaging was shown only as waste. So we understood that packaging was being underestimated in our society, only seen by a negative perspective, and not really being driven by the positive impact that packaging brings in our modern life in society. So we understood we would be the ones raising the voice for packaging together and bringing how packaging can contribute for more sustainable consumption chains in so many different aspects. So again, together with UNIDO and the International Atomic Energy Agency, we attended already COP28 in Dubai in 2023. And at that occasion, it was signed by 160 countries, a declaration on sustainable agriculture and resilient food systems and climate action. So it came to understanding the impact of the food systems on the climate change. So we started to work deeply on that, and through 2024, we had a task force working on this position paper, The Paradox of Food Loss and Waste, of course, balancing packaging waste as well, and this is what Nerida is going to discuss with us today. Together with UNIDO, we promoted different international and regional roundtables around the world, in Thailand for Asia, in Egypt for Arab countries and African ones, in Argentina for Latin American ones. Also a CONFEX at the UNIDO headquarters in Vienna. And we published this year this paper during the World Circular Economy Forum. And now we are heading for COP to gain and to advocate for commitments, to advocate for fundings and new projects that will allow us to work on a local level and make a difference. So with that, I'm handing back to Johannes, and let's move on to very interesting discussions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia, for your nice and interesting words. My message to the community, you know, this is a webinar, and we will have now a series of statements, presentations from our speakers. Nevertheless, we also want to include you. Yeah, we are here in the webinar modus. Yeah, that means not everybody can speak out of you because this would be very confusing. But please use the chat function. Yeah, you know, there is this chat function in Zoom. Please ask your questions. Please make your comments. at the end of the presentation, so about the last 15 minutes of our webinar here, we have the possibility to put your questions, your comments here into this discussion round and discuss it live to prepare our journey to COP. So use the chat function, please. So thanks, Luciana. She showed us the way of WPO. What are we doing? That it is not just a one hit wonder or whatever that we are going COP30. No, it is a long process we are in. And one companion on this long process, you saw it in the chart of Luciana, starting in 2017, with also some context for sure before, yeah, is our very precious cooperation partner. And more about this, it's really meanwhile a friend connections to them. Yeah, it's the UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. Ali, please tell us your point of view. You are, I guess, the most experienced COP person here in the round, yeah, because UNIDO has attended many of them already. Just to remind you again, Ali is chief of the Sustainable Food System Division in the Agribusiness Department of United Nations Industrial Development Organization. Maybe you can also explain a little bit in brief at the beginning what UNIDO is and what is your aspects of this COP30. Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the wonderful packaging community. And as always, I like to say, it's not just a community, it's really a family. And we're so happy, so proud to be part of this family, advancing some common objectives together, not only on the packaging side, but we are taking it globally. Well, I think, thank you, Luciana, for the amazing way of just putting it so nicely on how this whole journey started. And exactly, it was a journey. And it will not stop by the COP. I think we will get more and more excited to build on the momentum we will be creating together at COP in Brazil. So in a few words, I think maybe, yes, UNIDO is one of the specialized agencies of the United Nations system. And we were given the mandate by our member states of 174 member states that UNIDO should be promoting inclusive and sustainable industrial development. And this is really a very big responsibility. Promoting industrialization is by itself very big mandate. And to have this industrial development inclusive and sustainable, it brings it as much more a big responsibility on the shoulders of the organization and the management. But we've been doing our best to advance and help member states to advance their industrial development. But of course, to try to make it sustainable, we have to look at the environment impact, we have to look at the climate change, and we have to see how we can help member states and the industries in their journey. And of course, maybe, Johannes, you said that maybe I'm experienced in the COP within this community, but I can tell you I'm the least expert within UNIDO, because UNIDO has a major history in the COP itself. You can imagine, the industrial systems are contributing to the climate change, are really when it comes to the emissions. And this is where UNIDO has been in the dialogue, in the discussion at the COP since long time. Trying to advocate for global solutions, trying to join the discussions, the dialogue. So we have great teams in the house, whether they are from the circular economy colleagues to the energy colleagues, name it. They've been actively involved in the COP process. And we are known to bring to the table of the COP what we call industry solutions. And this is our slogan now. You'll see it in the social media as of yesterday until during the COP, that we bring industry solutions to the table. Because industry is not only to be looked at as a polluting sector, but actually a sector that brings solutions to address climate change. So when it comes to packaging and when it comes to food systems, we follow the same approach. We bring industry solutions. And as I think Luciana mentioned, 2 years ago, we got inspired by the very first small roundtable we had in the Dubai at the COP28, to try to bring the discussion not around only food loss and waste, which is a major contributor to green gas emissions, not only to talk about packaging waste, but we brought a different narrative. We tried to say how packaging and packaging industry and packaging innovations could bring solutions to address food loss and waste, which has an impact on climate. So that was the narrative. We did it in COP28. And I think we got excited together with WPO at that time, saying maybe we could take it forward, especially with the adoption of the Dubai Declaration on Food Systems at that time. That was also an interesting development to take up. And we took it up to the COP29, and I remember addressing the WPO board saying, we propose to you to join us, let's go to the COP. And yes, at that time, I think the WPO community were asking, what is the COP and why we should go there? And why do we have to go there? Because packaging is looked at it as a waste matter, as a polluter. And I think we thank you for the trust in us. Thank you for taking the risk with us to join us in advocating for how the packaging community and the packaging industry could be providing solutions to specifically the food systems, to specifically to the food loss and waste, and maybe more specific to the post-harvest losses, where packaging and food processing, they make a big difference. So that's why we are engaged as UNIDO. That's why we invited you to come on around the table, and that's why we're happy to see this is coming through. We're there next week together, but we're not alone. That's why we also called upon another partner. We called Alden, we called FSSC. FSSC is doing great work on when it comes to promoting standards and certification around general topics, and food loss and waste is being integrated, and I'm sure Alden will brief us about this. And they also took the risk, and they also believed in UNIDO, believed in WPO, and they joined the journey. And here we go. As Luciana mentioned, we worked on the narrative. We published a nice document which puts forward a good narrative, a good business case. We're equipping this with an additional tool that we'll be discussing at the COP. We didn't do this alone. As Luciana also mentioned in the journey, we had consultations around the globe. We've been doing these roundtables in different continents, talking to partners, to industries, and more are joining. So we're there, we're going together, and I think the job is getting more difficult to the partners, because we have to prove that the business case we're bringing around the table next week in Brazil is to be defended, is to be promoted. We gather more partners around the table, and I can tell you we're getting lots of interest from different partners who would like to join the discussion in the COP. And what comes out of Brazil next week will be much more of a more exciting journey. Our goal is not only now to advocate for the narrative that there's a major role for the packaging industry as a solution, there's a role for the packaging solutions to address food loss and waste, but also to look at the big picture, how we try to unlock financing to help the supply chains, help the packaging community, help the food system actors to actually do it, equip them with the tool, with the knowledge to do it. So hopefully Belém next week in Brazil will be a turning point from advocating the narrative into actions. So we count on your support, join us for the action, and please connect to the discussions, contribute to the discussions next week, and we promise you that we'll continue the journey together. And my last word will be, Luciana, you referred to 3 SDGs. I think the most powerful SDG for me is 17, is the power of partnerships. When like-minded partners come together around the common objective, they can do much more than doing alone. And I really thank you for the trust in UNIDO, and we will continue to work with you closely in this exciting journey. Over to you, Hannes.
Thank you, Ali, for this statement. Always on the point. We are used to this from your comments already. And the SDG is also the nice thing for me. We had this discussion and presentation last week in our meetings in Sri Lanka, and I went through the SDGs again, and there again and again, if I do it, it's so obvious. You're hitting so many SDGs up to this cooperation thing you just said. With our action here, that it really turns out to be marvelous. Because with one type of actions, you reach many, or do contribution to many of these SDGs. And please be prepared a little bit, because I want to focus also on the discussion afterwards, exactly what you said, yeah, how we can come from beautiful discussions, yeah, that we have on such conferences, yeah, maybe really then to action, yeah, because, and that means for me on a global level in WPO, in the associations, yeah, our members, yeah, but also in the companies, yeah, in the brand owners, in the packaging producers, in the packaging users, and so on. I think we should focus a little bit on this in the discussion afterwards, so please be prepared for this. But before we go first to this, we will have another speaker, and this is Nerida Kelton. She is fellow of AIP, Australasian Institute of Packaging, also responsible for New Zealand. Yeah, never forget about this. As mentioned, she's also our vice president in WPO for sustainability and safe food packaging. Yeah, and I think she gives us now the most profound idea. Where is this link between fighting climate change and packaging? Yeah, how is this connected? Nerida, the stage is yours. Please show us your slides.
Thank you. And firstly, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And yes, we can never forget New Zealand, because I'm sure there's some New Zealanders here tonight with us as well. But for those who know me, this is a topic that is really in everything that I do, because one of the biggest challenges that we have at the moment is this conversation around packaging waste and the environmental impacts of packaging waste. And what is challenging for me is that we just don't have that balance right. And so we really need to start changing the conversation, and going to COP is going to help us greatly with that globally, because we need to change the narrative to help people to understand the work in food and beverage, that food waste has a far greater environmental impact than that of packaging waste. And packaging plays such a significant role that can, if we can design it right at the start, minimize food loss and waste across the entire value chain. But I really wanted to touch on something that's really important, and it's taking a step back, because this is a really serious conversation that we're having. We're not just talking about climate change, we're talking about food security and food insecurity. And when we have 800 million people around the world that are either malnourished or starving, and yet we produce enough food to feed that 800 million people, and we're creating a significant environmental impact when that food, particularly the edible food, goes to methane levels sitting in landfill, we really have to change this conversation. And when we're talking about climate change, we have to start talking about food waste. Because if we want to put it in perspective, if food waste was a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world. And yet we continue to talk about packaging as a demonized discussion, and we've got to change that. And one of the most important things when we're trying to have this conversation is that we have to remind everybody around the world that packaging has a role. Packaging has such a significant role in that we have to make sure that it contains, protects, preserves, transports a product. And if we don't, what's going to happen with food and beverage? We're going to waste it across the value chain, and we're going to have significant environmental impacts. And what we have to do is really look at the way we design our packaging. And so we've started to change the way we train people in the world about safe food packaging design, because safe food packaging design is one step higher. And one step higher by I mean it has to be intuitive, it has to be smart, it has to be openable, we have to be able to reseal it. All these fantastic features that we can do at the start of our design processes. But you can't design packaging to minimize food loss and waste if you don't understand your value chain. And every country around the world and every region around the world has different losses or different waste areas. And we have to understand that when we're redesigning our packaging, are we designing it based on the country or the region that has those losses or waste? And when you look at this map, this gives you a fantastic idea. Light blue is household. And so you ultimately are looking at designing for household. And then if you look at navy, that's in production, and the yellow is handling and storage. And if we can encourage more governments and encourage more countries to measure and regulate the measurement of food loss and waste, we can then go in that value chain, identify where the trigger points are, and change the way we design the packaging to help minimize those losses. But one of the biggest challenges for all packaging designers around the world is, how do I do this? Because we have so many different things yelling at us. We've got people telling us we've got to make sure it's recyclable. We've got to make sure it's recycle ready. We've got to lower our environmental impact of our materials. But on the other side, we're saying don't waste food. Because if you waste food, you're going to have high environmental impacts. And so what we want you to do is try and find the sweet spot right in the middle, which is optimum packaging design. And then you have to decide as a business and as a designer what your trade-off's going to be. What's your environmental trade-off acceptable to your business? It could be underpacking, which is wasting food, or overpacking and wasting the packaging materials. But understand the science that sits behind that. Understand your life cycle assessment that sits behind that, and determine your decisions by science and also by the environmental impact of the product and the pack together. Because we have to get this balance right. And we've been having this conversation in WPO for probably about 8-9 years now. And we really have elevated it to a point which we're all extremely proud of. But going to COP is going to take it to another level. And if we can help people to understand that when you're talking about sustainable design, you are talking about food loss and waste. You are going to change the way you design your packaging to minimize food loss and waste if you follow sustainable design principles. The two that are most critical when you're designing your packaging is designed to reduce product waste and accessibility. And what I mean by accessibility is openability, resealability, the ability to handle it, grip it. You think about people that are elderly, that have mobility issues, that are sick, that are in hospital. If they can't open their food, if they can't handle their food, if they can't reseal their food, what is going to happen? They're going to waste their food or they're going to go hungry. And so we as designers have the responsibility to design better packaging at the start. We have a responsibility through design to minimize food loss and waste across the value chain. And we can do that through our safe food packaging design principles. And we really encourage you to take these principles and to access these principles, and they're mentioned in the position paper as well, and use them in your NPD processes so that you can create better packaging that can minimize food loss and waste across your value chain. And I just wanted to really quickly show you a couple of really fantastic World Star award-winning packs that have used safe food packaging design principles and really mindfully designed their packaging to find that balance. So finding the balance between recyclability, recycle-ready materials, lowering their environmental impact from that packaging material aspect, but also trying to preserve the food, extend the shelf life of the food. And this is a fantastic example of moving away from a clamshell. And inevitably, when you have ham in a clamshell, what happens is most consumers will take a knife to the packaging. They will then take the ham out of the packaging, they'll put it in another container and throw that packaging away. Well, you don't have to do that with this packaging. You can use this one container, this one pack. It's resealable, it preserves and extends the shelf life of the ham, and it's also recyclable through soft plastics programs. We also have to really be mindful of premium produce and how we can not only preserve but extend the shelf life of produce, especially if you are pushing it into export markets. And so really looking at thoughtful design that's FSC certified, monomaterial, fiber, recycle ready packaging, but can also have really intuitive design features, aeration points through the packaging that can extend the shelf life of the produce that's inside. Looking at things that get ploughed back in the field that are edible. So quite often around the world, the retailers refuse fruit and vegetables simply because they don't look right. They're weird, they're wonky, they're too big, they're too small, they're bruised. And so taking things like limes and lemons that are ploughed back in the field, that are edible, and making them into ice cubes. And so no additives, no preservatives, and you have these beautiful limes and lemons that no longer are being ploughed back into field. And then when we talk about accessibility, it's such an important feature that's so underutilized and can really make sure that we extend the shelf life and also make sure that people can open, handle, grip, reseal. And so simple things like induction seals, which drive us all nuts. We can't open them. There's no overhang tab on them. We have to get a knife to them. And then you have this beautiful example from Maya Seals that is intuitive and easily openable. And it's just a simple feature like that that could be the difference between someone eating their food or throwing it in the bin because they can't open the packaging. And then something like this, which is designed for portion control and controlled dispensing, because it's such an important feature for design, because we want to make sure we're not wasting it as we're pouring it, and it's not too heavy on our hand when we're pouring it. And so you have to have advanced pourability in your design. And this is a startup company in Spain that came up with a fantastic solution to control dispensing and pourability for juices. And then if you go to Japan, which is the leading country in the world for accessible design, intuitive features like cans. Cans drive us nuts. We all have trouble opening cans. But if you have intuitive features where you can slip your fingers in under them, even if you have arthritis or mobility issues, you are going to be able to open that can. We also have case studies which are really important to us because it teaches you what good looks like around the world, and everything from hermetically sealed bags in Nigeria to modular egg containers in China. So not just advanced technologies that you see in developed countries. We also, it's really important for us to promote all of the other simpler solutions that are more affordable and accessible for developing countries. And as Ali mentioned and Luciana mentioned, we're extremely proud of the Navigating the Food Loss and Waste position paper. It's the first time that we've worked together with Wageningen University, which brings the science. We have the UNIDO aspect, which Ali touched on, and WPO brings the packaging design aspect. And together, it's a fantastic position paper that I really encourage all of you to share with your own audiences and learn a little bit about this conversation that we're having. And ultimately, we have to start getting the balance right, and moving to discussions like today and going to COP next week is going to help us get this balance right. And so I thank you for the opportunity. Anyone that knows me knows I can talk about this all day, and I will stop talking.
Thank you, narrator, for this quick journey. And I'm seeing already the first people are using the question and answer section in our chat. So please do so. Yes, we will try to answer these questions afterwards in our discussions. And maybe, narrator, it's also time for a short advertisement now here, yeah, because you talked also a lot. Accessibility is an important thing on handling also food waste, food losses and food waste, because there is a special webinar exactly on this, or just next week, as far as I know, on 11th of November. So this should be next Tuesday, or?
Yeah, so if you want to learn how to design better packaging that's more accessible and openable and easy to open, please come and join us. It's a fantastic training course. And we have the past president of WPO, Professor Pierre Pienaar, who's a fantastic educator that's going to come and join us. And we have some amazing consumer insight videos. So please come and join us. All the information is available on the WPO website. And maybe, Sonia, we can pop a link into the chat as well.
Okay, thank you, narrator, for this, and I'm sure we will have some questions for you just after these presentations. Yeah, one more to go, last but not least, and this is not just a saying, but really like this, because, you know, we are talking already about action, yeah, how we not only can discuss things maybe on big conferences, but also bring it to the ground. Narrator has shown you now already our way of thinking and what could it really be in packaging technology that makes the change in reducing food loss and food waste, and that means in fighting climate change, yeah. But bringing it on the ground, yeah, we need partners, and we are more than happy that also about a good year ago, yeah, 2 years meanwhile ago nearly, we found FSSC as a partner. Me personally, I knew them a long time because I'm one auditor of their standards, yeah. But nevertheless, I'm much more happy that we now have a real cooperation on this, and not just the cooperation again on the paper, but we are really doing things, yeah. Aldin. Aldin is the CEO of the FSSC Foundation. Yeah, you're also a non-profit organization, global. This is quite similar to WPO. Yeah, you sitting in the Netherlands. Our headquarters is in Vienna, but our organizations are really spread around the world. Please give us your input. What was your decision? Why are you attending together with us COP? What is your way of thinking? Why are you going to this action? Aldin, please.
Yes. Thank you very much, Johannes. And yeah, what a pleasure and what an honor to be with all of you in this webinar. Indeed, I speak on behalf of our entire team. I'm here, but our entire team is very energized about the partnerships that we have with you guys. So it started talking about the journey, right? Luciana started talking about the journey this morning, first thing. And actually for us, it's also been quite a very interesting and inspiring journey. I think about 3 years ago, we started actually discussing, how we, with the work that we do, being a not-for-profit foundation in the Netherlands, running a certification scheme for food safety management systems, how we could be part of the solution, how we could make the world a little better. And we started becoming a member of United Nations Global Compact as a first step, thinking through impact, thinking through the SDGs that we discussed this morning, right? And actually ended up saying, right, for us, the measure is not more certificates, is trying to really help, creating impact on the Sustainable Development Goals. So for that reason, we also started discussing who would be the partners that we wanted to work with, essentially. We ended up with UNIDO, with Ali, that we knew already way back when he was, he works with you closely, but he's been also in the standard scene and the food safety standard scene for a long time. So we knew him from back then, and we went back to him to say, can we, as both as non-profits with the same view on the world, can we be working together? And essentially that led into the signing of an MOU that we did. I think it must have been at least 3 years ago, Ali, that we started working together on food safety capability building across the world. So that was the start of our journey in the relation with UNIDO. Then we did more work thinking through, all right, so if we are a not-for-profit scheme owner and we own a food safety management system certification scheme, how can we actually, leverage, the private sector that is using us to basically, impact, the biggest systemic issues that are there in the food industry. And we fairly quickly arrived at the topic of food loss and waste, right? So that is, I think, also one of the things that binds us. And we started thinking this through and said, right, SDG 12.3, that's the one. Sustainable production and consumption, or responsible production and consumption, I believe it's called, and trying to halve, that by 2030. That was also our realization that we need to really, home in on that one. And we started exploring the world of food loss and waste. And who's doing what? What are the stakeholders in that world? And that was a journey that we got ourselves into. And well, before I want to talk about the link to WPO, let me also share a slide that illustrates who we are, what we do, and then make also the link to the WPO connection that we have. So I hope, let's see that you guys can share. Let me share my screen real quick. I hope this is visible for everybody. Yeah. So okay, good. So our marketing and comms team has done a very nice job in visualizing who we are, what we do. So just talk quickly on where we come from. So we are not for profit based in the Netherlands, indeed, but we are working across the world with all the people that we have and the work that we do. Our vision is creating a better world. So let's see how we can help doing that. And at the bottom, you will see that it says provide trust and impact, which is our mission statement. So all the work that we do through certification, which is essentially assurance of making sure private sector in managing, in our case, in our biggest certification program, FSSC 22000, there's essentially an assurance mechanism around that food business operators across the value chain are making sure they provide safe food to and produce safe feed, but also produce safe manufacture safe packaging materials. So that is also the link that we have to WPO. That's also part of the scope. Food is defined as food, feed, and packaging because it has an indirect impact on food safety. And so what we do at the top, you see we own schemes. We have 2 certification schemes based on ISO management system standards. The one that I want to talk about today is FSSC 22000. We also have sustainability scheme 24000, which is more looking at working conditions. Then the assurance piece comes in, where we as a scheme owner also make sure that all those auditors, and Johannes being one of them, that deliver all those audits on a daily basis and are employed by our contracted certification bodies, that they play the rules according to the game, according to the rules. So they conduct an audit from A to Z as stipulated and described in the certification scheme that we have. So this keeps about 3,500 auditors every day busy conducting this work. Ultimately, if you look at our website, we have a public list of certified companies. You will see there's 40,000 companies by now that have achieved certification. The bulk is food manufacturing, so food processing, but there is also a big amount of companies that are into the packaging industry. It's about 6,000 companies that are into the packaging industry that use our scheme. So there we also have the leverage and the power to bring about change. And this is also how we built that connection to WPO that I want to highlight a little bit more in a minute. Now, 2 other value propositions that we bring to the world is digital solutions. You can imagine that we have a lot of data and reports that come to us on a daily basis in our platform. From that wealth of data, we can, provide a lot of insights into the biggest challenges in supply chains. We can use it for our own purposes in terms of determining if our certification bodies comply with all the rules that we've set. So that is an emerging value that we see and that companies want to have access to. So data sharing is an increasingly important activity for us. Capacity building on the left-hand side is more about what do you do with those insights? So can we build capacity? Can we help companies to improve on their food safety performance? And this is also where I believe the power between UNIDO and WPO and us come in, because nobody can do this alone. We need each other. We need partnerships to bring about, if you think about SDG 17, the partnerships, the goals that we can commonly determine and help each other in trying to be stronger with 3 parties than the individual parties alone. So I will stop sharing and say a few words on the connection to WPO actually. I mean, we've had in our program for quite some time requirements for auditors to become trained and become competent, and referring to WPO courses. That's been in our scheme actually for quite some time, until we realized that the WPO is an organization that is actually very closely working with UNIDO. And when we started to work with UNIDO, we never realized, 1, that UNIDO was working so closely with them, and 2, that their office was basically around the corner from UNIDO in Vienna. So, and this opportunity was actually a golden opportunity that I took, and I looked up Johannes in the office in Vienna, and we started talking and actually realized we have so much in common, right? So soon after, we have signed it was an obvious thing for me to sign an MOU from our organization to be working with WPO, focusing on, well, one of the key topics that we realized also that WPO is so much focusing, the topic of food loss and waste. And essentially, I think there is the power where the coalition of the willing, if you will, you can call it, where the power of the 3 of us come in. What we can bring to the table is with our standards and our requirements that are being audited and checked every year at all those companies, that we can use our power to put the topic of food loss and waste on the radar screen of all those companies. And we started with manufacturing, but now we are working on a plan to also introduce requirements for packaging companies in the packaging industry around food loss and waste, and not reinventing the wheel. So we have used all the materials and the design principles and the guidelines that Nerida has referred to in her presentation. And we will make sure that those companies will be asked questions around the extent to which they have used and capture and incorporated those elements into the design process that they are responsible for, to ultimately indirectly also in a positive manner include food loss and waste. So I think that's what we can bring to the table. We bring the scale, so we can accelerate the impact by bringing the scale that we have and not reinventing the wheel, but helping each other to ultimately impact food loss and waste in a positive manner. So I'm very happy next week that we all will be there in Brazil, in Belém, to actually, you know, show that we're part of the solution. There's a lot of, you know, sometimes depressing news in the world, but we want to be positive and bring a solution to the world, and with that, you know, make the world a little better. So I keep it to that. Thank you very much. Back to you, Johannes.
Thank you, Aldi. Thank you for this comment. Yeah, I totally agree to you. The first thing is we should talk more together with each other, yeah, because then we find, okay, we have so many things common. Let's do it together. Let's cooperate. Let's work together, yeah, and use the joint forces, yeah, because then it's much easier, yeah. So really nice. And the second thing is also getting into action. Yeah, I think for sure we can wait what the politicians do, and they will do, but sometimes they're slow or there are conflicts, and then it's up to us who should do it. We have to act on it. I think this is also a good principle that keeps us together. Good, thank you, my dear panelists. Yeah, we have now about 10 minutes before we have to close the session again to answer some questions. Thank you. At least some comments are already there in the chat and in the question and answer section. Maybe Nerida, may I start with you, because for sure there are some questions in there. What can I do in detail? The question came before your presentation. I think you answered some of them already. Yeah, but on the other hand side, if I never have done as a company, something and ask myself, what can I do with my packaging systems that I produce or that I use to reduce loss and waste? And then if I see the charts, whole design processes, maybe it's a little bit big. Is there a one easy first step or something like this?
I would say that the first step is to understand where your loss and or waste is in your business. And so because you can't actually change it if you don't know where it is. And so the first recommendation for me is to identify and do some trials and pilot your packaging, your primary, secondary, and tertiary through your value chain, and see whether the damage or spoilage is, and see where it's happening. And then you can identify how to redesign the packaging using the principles. But until you know where your loss or waste is, then it's difficult to say use this specific principle.
Okay. So first is to know where it is about, and then you had these guidelines in your presentation, yeah. Also with the QR codes, for sure it was just charts, but there's much more tips and tricks.
There is, and we also do, the WPO has a training course on that, which hopefully we can offer maybe next year. But I think that it's really important to identify where your loss or waste is first, and then look at using the design principles second.
Okay, thank you. Aldin, I think another guideline will be, you mentioned it in your statement, so we can talk about it. Another guideline will be maybe soon in your standards, because there are already requirements for reducing food loss and food waste for the food producers, yeah. But if I understood you correctly, it's now also coming for packaging producers. Yeah, what is your timeline there? How fast are you with such changes in your standards?
No, that's correct. So we started including food loss and waste requirements for food manufacturers, food processors, in our current version 6 of the scheme, and that was published and became effective in April 24, so last year. what we are now doing, and at the time we had the discussion, this does not really fit the packaging industry, right? So the partnership with WPO and the people in my team that are intimately engaged in the working groups in WPO have also discussed, what can we use that is more fit and understood and accepted in the packaging industry. So what we are working now is on a plan to include in a version 7 of our scheme auditable and certifiable requirements for manufacturers of packaging products and packaging materials. And our version 7 of the scheme will go to our board next week, Wednesday, when we're all in Belém for final review and approval. So we work on those plans, and that version 7 of the scheme will become effective in April next year. And then there will be, as usual, a 1-year transition time for companies to go to the next version. And so ultimately, that means that by April the year after, everybody will have undergone a version 7 audit. So that means for packaging industry people, there's of course there's a year transition time. There's all the fantastic materials of WPO available. I'm sure we will also write more support documentation up so that we will want to set up everybody for success, right? So this is very positive. I believe that we can offer that, to all the more than 6,000 packaging companies, also to help them to do the right thing.
Mm.
Yeah. The tricky thing there, I guess, is what is the responsibility of the packaging producer? What is the responsibility of the packaging user? Or this is a interesting question. Or who is doing what? And again, it's a matter of communication, I guess, or between the two parties.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I agree. So, I mean, obviously, in most cases, a packaging business is an input supplier to a food manufacturer, right? Some of them might do it themselves, but most of them, they rely on a third party that produce. So these two will have to work closely together, obviously, right? To make sure that ultimately the impact on food loss and waste is going to be, like Neria said, is going to be looked at and determined in a more balanced manner. I mean, you can continue reducing plastic waste and to the extent that you cause ultimately more food loss and waste, and then we might be worse off. And that whole exercise, and I think also that the support that we need is to help industry with the right tools to ensure, arriving at the right balance, which is not easy. And I think there's good work on the way also to help those companies, and we should do more webinars and stuff like that also to make sure that they can benefit from all the support tools that is out there, right?
Yeah.
And I think, Alden, too, with your standard coming, that we have the opportunity then to really talk to the packaging suppliers and the packaging manufacturers to help them to understand that some of the responsibility lies with them as well. And so if we really are genuinely talking about climate change and lowering environmental impacts, and we truly mean what we're saying, then they also have to come on the journey with us. And I can talk anecdotally with many companies that I've worked with around the world. They are starting to come on that journey. And so having that standard is critical to having more of them come on the journey with us. And it's exciting to see.
Okay, thank you. Luciana and Ali, more going to the bigger level, not only to the direct companies, but WPO is a member organization. It's an association. So our members are these national packaging institutes or associations. Ali, if you do your work, normally you go to a country and work on a whole supply chain, for fish in Cambodia, like I know about, or apples in Pakistan or whatever. Yeah. What is the benefit of such organizations for our members, Luciana? Yeah, that could come out of this COP30 process now. And Ali, on your level, what is your benefit in such projects? Yeah, what does we discuss there in COP30?
It is a collective effort. So as we said, we really rely on every expert and different WPO members and experts from around the world to support us, to elevate the discussion, to bring in more references as well. So even there is a question here, if WPO support works together with Ellen MacArthur Foundation, for example. So even though we are not working on a daily basis with them, We recognize that they are also supporting to elevate this discussion. They are supporting to bring in more references. So it's about really having, I mean, more entities and bodies raising this, elevating this discussion. And from a WPO perspective, within the working group that Nerida leads, the Sustainability and Safe Food Working Group, there is so much discussion going on and projects going on. So really, Nerida is engaging WPO members in some researchers and supporting even university studies, for example, and bringing them in references from different countries, how this goes on in our country, how we can bring in as a data to come up with this final study on this, bringing different perspectives from different localities. So yes, IIP, also there is here a question, is part of it, and being an active member of WPO, joining our board meetings and the working group meetings, can be there and candidate to be part of such projects and share its knowledge as well. So, yeah.
Luciana, may I jump in just to answer? I think there's two questions. Tamwiz is one of them. So obviously, as Luciana said, we're working on some life cycle assessment at the moment, which we're really excited, which hopefully we'll have next year. The other thing is that we have a very strong relationship with Safe Food Org. We're a part of that now. We're a partner in that program, and Safe Food Org is also with FAO, and so it's UNIDO, WPO, FAO, and Safe Food Org, which is owned by Messe Düsseldorf, who own Interpack, which is the largest trade show in the world for packaging. And so we have a fantastic relationship with FAO, and we're always using their resources and their scientific reports as well. And certainly we do welcome anyone to provide us with access to any other organization that you think we should be talking to.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in, just to comment a comment from Antoniette, I believe it can be the Antoniette part of SSC as well. But even, or if a packaging company, even a producer, I mean, a manufacturer, even this company is just producing a packaging and it has not designed it, but this company sees an opportunity of improvement. It's important to have this company raising the voice and suggesting to the brand owner, that is the final client, that there is some room for improvements, that there should be a redesign of this packaging using better the technologies available, packaging solutions available. So even though us here, we can work on an institutional level, each one of us today here, and we see a very engaged audience, can make a difference in her activity on a local level, on a daily basis. So don't minimize the impact that you can make by raising the voice and suggesting the client, the brand owner, for example, that there is room for improvement. There is better technology and design perspectives for that packaging that would bring better efficiency. So raise your voice as well.
Thank you. And Ali, if I understood it correctly, you as a UNIDO also working on a kind of toolbox or to implement all these safe food and loss and connections to packaging into your project activities you do in the countries.
In a brief, I think our approach also is centered around how to equip our member states and the national stakeholders in the member states to be able to serve the supply chains in optimizing packaging, addressing food loss and waste. And because of that strategy, it's important to realize that the supply chain actors, as we speak, they take decisions on what food to produce, what package to use, where to take it to the next level. And no one can really look after these supply chains on a daily basis. And as I think Aldin and Nerida mentioned, they need to work together, but it's a shared responsibility across the whole supply chain, because the retailer procurement actions can influence the whole supply chain. So that's why our approach is that we need those centers of excellence. We need those WPO members to be around there at country level, to be able to connect the supply chain actors, to bring solutions, put them together. That's the only way we believe that we could advance the impact. And that's why the first time we met with WPO, our strategy number one action was how to build capacity of WPO members as a centers of excellence who are equipped with the tools, with the knowledge, with the network, and the financing on the top of this, to be able to drive the change and put the supply chains in a way on optimizing the packaging and the food loss and waste. And that's why one of the things we are doing to build these toolbox, which is simply equip those centers with some tools to help these supply chains to take the right decisions. We cannot claim that UNIDO could give them a decision which package to use and which decision to take, but equip them with the knowledge, tools, and hopefully with the COP30 we could unlock some financing that those centers could have access to some financing to be able to optimize, innovate, and help the supply chains. That's our approach. That's the journey we're taking, and I hope the COP30 will help us to unlock some of these things.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ali. Yeah, looking on our time, we could talk for another hour now, I think, but we have to quit this and finish this. One very short last round. My idea was, okay, yes, most of you are now going to Brazil, yeah, next week, yeah. What is, and good luck for this, and have safe travels and so on, yeah, and good discussions. What is the next step after this? Yeah, can you have short closing remarks from everybody? Nerida, after COP30, what is your plannings?
We just have to keep elevating this conversation around the world, and we need all of the WPO members to participate in elevating this conversation. That's absolutely critical from my perspective.
Thank you. Aldin?
Yes, no, indeed. I think the journey is only starting. I think to try and re-emphasize, these points to a much bigger audience, and there we need each other. And we also need to make it happen, right? I mean, you can write up requirements in your scheme like we do, but I mean, that's one thing. But I mean, also like Luciana said, on a daily basis, people need to work with this and make it happen. So I think we have a joint responsibility in kind of, and keep the finger on the pulse, listen and adapt, and ultimately, learn from each other. And, this is a never-ending story, but I'm very excited to do that with great people and great partners that we have here today. So thank you, Johannes.
Thank you, Aldin. Ali?
As we started as a magnet, attracting FSSC and WPO into this, I think after Brazil, the three of us are turning into magnets to attract more and more partners, and then move next year into simply programming and financing, because our community, our member states, your members in WPO expect now some action. So let's just attract more partners, trap them into this journey, and then start the programming and the financing. And by this, we can claim that what we're trying to do is bringing impact and not just events and narratives.
Thank you, Ali. And finally, Luciana, your closing words, please.
Thank you, Johannes, and thank all of you for joining us today. So from, a daily basis perspective, WPO, UNIDO, FSSC, Wageningen University, and all partners and more are welcome. We are really not only raising this discussion, but building references. So we saw lots of questions on how can I have a reference on CO2 emissions, or how we balance food loss and waste, what is the impact? So we are working on those references. We have this guideline available for download. We are all now working on a self-assessment tool to support companies and food chains to make an assessment on a local level. We will for sure promote new webinars, so stay tuned. Follow WPO on social media. Please always visit our website, because we will bring more webinars on this. And then on a more strategic level, as Ali already mentioned, we are looking for a governmental commitment and private sector commitment, so that we can reach out to climate funds, so that we can go on and improve projects on a local level to support building capacity, expertise centers, and so on, so that we can really make a difference on a local level. So it's just one small step in a really, really big journey, and we are looking forward to working closely to all of you.
Okay, thank you so much for these closing words. Thanks for all the attendees. Thanks that you joined us. If any open questions, please just give us an email. You have our contacts on our webpage. Yeah? ISO 20001, I see, yes, we are aware of it. Nerida is in there, by the way. But all further questions, please just come up with us. Or if you have a message we should bring to Brazil next week, then please just email us. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening wherever you are. Yeah? And see you at the webinar after COP30, okay?